Okay, morning everybody. Welcome to Monday here in Lambert Land. Um, so we got a two-part video today, or two-part set. I think 9 slides and then nine more, or 8 more, something like that. So there'll be two of them because it's a lot of info. Remember, this is the last set of lecture notes before the quiz. So we're finishing up the executive branch today. So let's start with the issues sort of involving. We left off with some of the commander-in-chief issues and the war powers and all that. So let's talk about a few issues. And this is all rhetorical for this slide. So rhetorical questions here. Is the system still relevant today? And you'll see what we're talking about. This is about the president. Does the president's ability for rapid response and communication undermine separation of powers? That is something to think about. Okay, because things have gotten so fast, things happen so quickly. The president has a lot of flexibility, and so some of the ideas here is, should the president have as much flexibility as it appears that he has? And then what is realistic? So we're going to talk a little bit about this on the next slide. And the idea here is crisis management, and that's what we're really talking about, where all of this power and flexibility and new powers that perhaps the framers never envisioned, or new things that the framers never envisioned. So, and again, most of those occur in foreign policy, as you might imagine. um, things have to happen quickly. Quick judgments need to be made. You need to figure out what's going on. Things happen at the drop of a hat these days. We can even go back to 1960 to 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis, where things happened so quickly. Iranian hostages in the late 70s and early 80s. The things that happened in Libya not too long ago in the Obama administration. Drone attacks. All sorts of things happen quickly. I mean, even you can go as far as the Osama bin Laden raid, or the raids, the several raids that happened during President Trump's time that got the next top people in these terrorist organizations. They can do good for a president, and they can do bad for a president. They can undo. So President Carter very much lost a lot of his image in 1980 with a failed attempt to rescue Iranian hostages in the summer. I think it was summer before the election. Or they can change the image for the better. George W. Bush after 9/11, a massive change, and we'll see what that is. And I'll show you a little bit in a minute. Modern times require rapid action and secrecy. Those are things that Congress cannot do. No matter what, they can't act fast. They are not set up to act fast. And as you could just see it, they are not able to act fast. There's 435 representatives and 100 senators. They're large. They're slow. Sometimes certainly decentralized in some cases. It just can't happen. And they will blab. They just do. The president has become much more prominent. It just has. Basically, you could say probably since World War II, maybe a little bit since World War I. But the president has become much more prominent in this area. Okay, so let's talk about the presidency and the public. Public relations is a major part of the presidency. They spend a lot of time and effort on public relations. They have essentially since FDR. Almost every time you see the president, virtually every time you see the president, the events you see are staged. Now, President Trump has been a little bit different, but if we take that anomaly out, you will find, even if it looks spontaneous, it's not. Okay. Now, with President Trump, it's been different. It has been spontaneous. A lot of it has been spontaneous, but for the most part, in general, they are staged. And ceremonies are part of this effort. They do these ceremonies. They take part in them. Things like throwing out the first pitch at a baseball game, welcoming all sorts of people and teams. There is a reason that the president invites the national champions of this, that, and the other thing to the White House. There is a reason for that. It's for public relations. It's for the public to see. Lighting the Christmas tree, all of those things are all there for the public presidency. It is symbolism. You get favorable press coverage. All that stuff goes with it, and that's what they're looking for. Now, you can say it's cynical, but it's not that either. It's just a part of the job, and it is something that is a benefit to a president. So with that in mind, let's talk about presidential approval. Okay, public relations are aimed at increasing the approval rating. That is the point. Okay, the higher it is, and of course we talked about this when we talked about Congress, talked about this, talked about the president as chief legislator. The higher it is, the easier it is to get your programs through. It's just, I mean, that's a logical thought process. The better the president's approval ratings, the better chance they have of getting what they want through Congress. It is something that is constantly polled, whether internally by the White House organization, or certainly externally by media, by Gallup, by all these people. And of course, so when you think about it, the party ID is the base of the approval rating, right? Republicans are going to be the base of a Republican president's approval, and Democrats are going to be the base of a Democratic president approval. And those of the who are the parties average 40% higher approval than others. So what you end up getting is that Republicans will be 40% higher in their approval. This is what that means, of a Republican president than the Democrats will of a Republican president, and the opposite goes as well. And we talked about this before, and we'll talk about it again, and we'll see it here. Most likely, Biden will be the winner. We will see this honeymoon period. And we talked about it earlier, so just refer back to that. The idea that in the first 100 days, couple of months, whatever it is, the president has a lot of political capital, a lot of goodwill, and all of that stuff. And if they use it right, it can get a lot of things done. Okay, so let's talk about changes. Changes in approval rating reflect the evaluation of how he's handling it, and it's the public's evaluation, right? Higher if things are going well, lower if there's chaos, and you might imagine this is not an illogical process here, right? Sometimes there are big jumps. We call them rally events. A couple of examples here. George H.W. Bush got an 18% jump after the Gulf War. Very successful prosecution of that particular war, kicking Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, all of that. His son, George W. Bush, got a 39% approval rating jump after 9/11. Looking at rallying the country around, and the country rallies around the president. That's what happens. They usually don't last long, though. No matter George H.W. Bush, I mean the Desert Storm Gulf War stuff, was over in 1991. In 1992, he was defeated, and you'll see a chart. I'll point out to you how quickly that went down. George W. Bush, same thing. He managed to get reelected, but things were going downhill. Basically, the whole idea here, the White House makes an extraordary effort, a massive effort to portray the president in a positive light. Of course, it doesn't always work, but they are geared towards that. That's why these things are staged. That's why they're made to make the president look as good as possible. Okay, so let's look at a quick graph here, and you can see these things. It goes from FDR all the way through Obama's first term here, and you can see it there. One of the things to note about this is usually the approval ratings are higher at the beginning than they are at the end. Okay, once they get a chance to make that jump, and you can see where things went south. Truman at the very end. This is during the Korean War, so in 1950 to 52, his approval rating was down below 30. Okay, and you can see what happens. Eisenhower gets elected, and boom, jumps up to over 70. Look like what, 75. But still lower at the end. Kennedy, big jump, and then lower at the end, and of course he was assassinated, and you get Johnson there. Johnson jumps, but then Johnson way down. That's the Vietnam War. 1968, he decides not even to run for re-election. Then you get the pop up there for Nixon, and then Nixon, of course, way down there in Truman territory. That's Watergate, right? And he resigns. Ford gets a nice jump, but then the economy kind of sinks him there. Carter gets a nice jump, but then you can see by the end, things are going very bad, and that's a lot of it is economic related. We were in stagnation, all that kind of stuff. Reagan, a nice jump. He gets down in 82, but manages to recover to get reelected. And even by the time he's done, he's higher than certainly some of his predecessors. And then George H.W. Bush, you can see that massive jump, 8 March 91, 89% approval rating. That's when the Gulf War was concluded. But then you see that precipitous drop all the way down to 30 before he lost his bid for reelection. Then there's Clinton, up and down, pretty much up there, and then started to get down during impeachment, that kind of thing. And then this massive jump there You can see that jump for George W. Bush, 26 October. That's his high point there, 88. That's after 9/11. You can see how that goes, and then just drops, drops, drops. He gets a nice jump at the end, and then you get Obama there, and it's going down, and then Obama's will continue to fluctuate in sort of those areas. So those kind of things are happening. It's a great way to look at this. One of the things probably to take away from this more than anything else is remember that they are usually better at the beginning than they are at the end, whether it's a one-term or a two-term president. Okay, so a couple more slides for this one. So how do they get their policy support? So this is still all that public relations thing. You have to know this term, the bully pulpit, created by Teddy Roosevelt. Presidents can mobilize the public to support their policies if they are skilled at communicating them. They get to have the stage almost whenever they want. They could go on TV almost whenever they want. And if they are good at it, they can mobilize the public by using their unique position. There's no senator or representative has a bully pulpit. Nobody else has this ability except the president. If they use it wisely, they can really get support for their policies. FDR was great at it. Of course, there's not TV then, but radio. Kennedy was great. Reagan and Clinton all were really, really good at using this bully pulpit to move their programs along. However, we do have to understand the public is not nearly as receptive as you might think it is. That's why it doesn't work all the time. You have to be really good at it. And a lot of times, the reason is the public has misperceptions and misconceptions about what is really happening. Okay, so last slide for this one. Mobilizing the public. Presidents may want the public. This is something that they've tried in the past. Hey, they go out there and say, hey, you need to call your congressman, you need to call your senator and get them on board with my program. They need political support for action. Generally, the public is inattentive. That's why they try to get this thing going. Reagan was very successful in 1981, probably the last time it was really successful. Got a massive public action for his tax cuts. A telephone blitz happened in Congress back when there wasn't the internet and all of that. And this flurry of phone calls from all over the country actually made this work. It's probably the last time, like I said, that it was successful. And again, so that success was an anomaly. So that's it for this part. There's one more part for this. We'll finish up the executive branch. So I'll see you on the other side of that.